Izeneyes, to all of you great American dads out there, the mothers of your children, and of course, the ones who call you dad. That's what this is all about. With the Izeneyes and the goal process, that's where it began. And in this first episode, I am really excited to introduce you to the goal process. This is something that has actually been going on for a good 20 plus years of something I've been writing. A little history on me. I owned a gymnastics club for a good 16 years. I've been coaching since I was 15. By the time I was done with my coaching career, it was 28 years of education experience working with primarily youth. I had the opportunity to work with over 3,000 individuals who had come through my facility or in my classes, several dozen different employees, and obviously about 6,000 parents and grandparents. And that gave me a lot of insight in what parenting was like, even before I was able to become a dad myself. I've had more pleasure in my life teaching other people's children as well as my own how to become better individuals, have a better path in life. And it all comes down to what I call the goal process. Well, what does Izeneyes mean? From the inside cover, it is defined as the process as well as the driven desire in which someone or something is improved with direct intent and dedicated purpose. That's what goals are. So when you are out there to Izeneyes your life, you are out there with a dedicated purpose. You have full intent and a direct target that you are bound to achieve. That's what you're aiming at. I also say at the beginning cover that this book isn't for everybody. I realize not everybody wants to improve the things around them. I realize not everybody wants to achieve a higher thing, or they want to go about the best ways of doing it. They just want what they want. We've unfortunately become a very immediate satisfaction needy type of country, which really is sad. We haven't learned how to dedicate ourselves. We haven't learned how to persevere or strengthen ourselves. And not everybody wants to, and I absolutely get that. And in so saying that, the very first quote that you come across in the book Izeneyes, nice loud vehicle outside, is a quote from Brigham Young. And he says, "He who takes offense when no offense is intended is a fool. And he who takes offense when offense is intended is a greater fool." So if you're offended by this, you just have to determine, are you a fool or a greater fool? The choice is yours on this one. And as I said, I realize this is not for everybody. I do realize that there's great opposition in the direction we are aiming to go. And it's going to be fun. So, as I mentioned, I've had a gymnastics club the majority of my life. Walking barefoot was normal. So, because those nice soft mats and all that, I just loved being in the gymnastics environment. The beginning of the goal process actually began as newsletters to the parents for my gym. I had a really weird schedule, and I don't know why I did this, especially on a business concept. I had 6-week sessions that people would pay for their tuition 1 month or 2 months, not in the middle, because people couldn't remember, is it due on the 1st? No, not this month. Next month it'll be closer to the 1st. And so people forgot to pay. And it's not that they weren't willing to, it's just that was just a horrible setup. I eventually did change. However, it did inspire me to say, hey, parents aren't paying on time. And I need something that reminds them, when is tuition due? And so I started writing these newsletters. And at that time, we had a very brand new team group. And so I would analyze the team, and to get people to actually look at the tuition notice, I would write an article about how to improve yourself. What is the status of our girls right now? Because our team was mostly girls at that time. And what can we do? What's the challenges we are currently facing? we know where we want to go. We want to start scoring 9s and 10s at competitions, and we're scoring, I think it was 5 or 6 at the first competition we went to. It was humiliating, but it was a great base to start from. And so I was like, you know what, we messed up on this, so let's write this down. Let's, focus on this particular skill here, and the next competition we go to, hopefully that skill, boom, raises our score. And the idea wasn't to go get a 10 every single time. It was, I went in there with a 6, I got a 6.2. So I can be proud of myself. I made an improvement. And so that's really where the goal process originated. Currently, this newest edition of the Izeneyes and the goal process is dedicated to the U.S. Dads organization. And I would like to read a little bit of excerpt out of the beginning of Izeneyes so that there's an understanding of what this podcast is going to be about in future episodes. This edition is dedicated to the supporters of the U.S. Dads organization, a nonprofit created by me and my children. As mentioned earlier, we have been significantly impacted by divorce and the family court system, witnessing a decline in adherence to laws and a lack of concern for the safety and protection of children within the courts. It seems that family values have been lost in the judicial process. That is why we are doing what we do now. For unknown reasons, the judge decided that me spending time with my children was absolutely unacceptable. So I have dedicated myself for the time that I don't get to have my kids to help other fathers have a better relationship with their children. This podcast also goes somewhat coincidentally with our family podcast called The Other Side of Pleasant, and I'll probably put some links in down below. And you'll see that we talk a lot about some of the struggles that we've had, particularly with the courts, and what laws that they decided to not use and what evidence they decided to say didn't exist. And it has really changed our views, and it's made us stand up and say, it's time to do something. So my kids and I did start the U.S. Dads organization on that premise. And we spent a lot of money in trying to get attorneys to say, hey, here's the laws, judge, you just need to follow them. It's not that hard to figure this out. And that was what didn't happen. When we look at our situation and how devastating and humiliating it really is, we've actually had it pretty easy compared to other stories that we've heard. And my heart goes out to any parent who has wrongly had their children taken away by the judicial system. I've heard of stories with children in CPS when there's still a good parent available. And, we're going to take the side of good parenting every single time. When we hear about a parent, it doesn't matter if it's father or mother, we will hold that accountable. We need to see that families have strong parenting skills. So U.S. Dads and this podcast is primarily aimed for the dads out there. I'll give it that. But the idea is to help those dads know how to be a great father and to learn to love their children so that their children can have the perfect example of someone to look up to. And it is the father's job after that to assure that those kids learn those lessons. That's why we aim with the dads. It's not to say that one is more significant than the other, because to have good parenting in America, it takes moms and dads. And we want to improve the family as a whole. If you actually have a copy of the Izeneyes book open with you, you're going to notice I'm going to skip around a little bit. The idea of these podcasts isn't to go sequentially through the book. You can do that all on your own. And I want to talk about some of the things that helped inspire some of the stories behind what they are. But so first off, in the prelude, I talk about what is a goal. When I was coaching gymnastics, a lot of kids actually didn't know what that was. They've heard the word, but they didn't have enough experience in life to say, "Ooh, that's what it is," and you actually have to teach them. So there's the prelude. Like I said, there's a couple beginnings in the book. There's a preface, and then there's a prelude, and that's because of so many different renditions of the book and who I was catering to at that time to evolve into one. So it was still all good content, and I just kind of kept it within some of the original formatting for heritage reasons. So what is a goal? So a goal is an objective. It's an aim, an ambition. It's a purpose. It can be an item to acquire. It's something that you just aspire to. It could be a goal. It could be a habit. It's just a defined status. A goal represents a desire or an achievement that you're willing to work towards. Now, where do goals come from? Well, they come from people. They come from you. They come from the people around you. And it is people who want to see something more in life. It is people who want to acquire more or to present themselves to the world in the way they wish to present themselves. That's what a goal is. And what do they cost? Well, goals, being that they start as ideas, they don't cost anything. However, I do mention if you don't have a goal, the cost is great. It is the cost of your self-esteem. It is the cost of your progress. It is the cost of everybody around you staying at a status quo or stagnant. And those aren't good things for human nature. We've got to constantly be improving. We've got to constantly be changing and redefining and individualizing things. So if you have no goals as an individual, your life goes nowhere. If we have no goals as a family, your family will disintegrate. If you have no goals as a community, it turns to ruin. If you have no goals as a country, we fall apart. And right now, when we look at the country, do we have a good defined set of goals for the country? No. I would like to see the goals become family oriented. So that is the cost of not having a goal. Okay, who needs them? Well, obviously you do. The people around you do. The community needs them. The state needs them. The country needs them. When you listen to all of these people, mostly on the internet, they're talking about a goal, something that we need to improve, especially here in this election season. I'm going to promise you this change. I'm going to promise you that change. Those are all goals, and we've got to listen to what they have to say and decide which one gives us the best goals. I'm aiming for the one who is going to improve the family the most. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. And what is the goal process? Well, it's 11 steps. 1, identify your wants. 2, write all your wants down. 3, refine and prioritize your list of wants. 4, define each goal's obstacle. 5, find mentors. 6, research, study, and learn. 7, prepare. 8, work. 9, monitor your progress. 10, celebrate success. And 11, this was a big deal in the gym, it really was, become a mentor. I learned that when kids, especially youth, applied these 11 steps, it made it easier for them. It really did. So when a child entered my class, all they really knew, especially if they're between that 6 to 8 year old range, that's a fun age. I really do enjoy that age. They just knew they were here to do gymnastics. They have seen the other classes. They're jumping, they're running, they're flipping, they're laughing. To them, they're there for fun. And they didn't know anything much more beyond this is going to be fun, especially if they had me as a coach. I mean, inevitably, it was fun. You know, I'd worked for several other gyms before, and there was kind of a progress chart of level 1, level 2, level 3. You know, once I started my own gym, I saw the benefits of that. I also saw the downfalls with that kind of system. Usually it was a binder where a coach had it, And each student had a page inside that binder with their name on it, had all the skills for level 1. And then they just check it off. And there's some good and bad in that. One, the coach is the one who wrote everything down. So that's why step 2 is write it down, know what the goals are. So when the kids would come in, they needed to know, what are we going to work on? But then beyond that, it's not just what, but how do we work on it? Why do we work on it? So there was a lot of questions in there. And most of the time, the ignorance of these new gymnasts, they didn't even know how to ask. So when kids came to my gym, the first thing we did is we individualized it. When you individualize the coaching, they are more receptive. In so doing, we took their picture on day 1. Once they signed up and they said, I want to be in this class. And they saw all the other kids with their book, with their pictures and their name on it. There's some stories behind that too. So originally, I just had a standard book. So here's all the level 1 skills, here's the level 2 skills. And when you pass off all the level 1s, you can go to level 2. Just progression. And I ended up with kids that had same names. And I pick up a book and I was like, this isn't marked off. And I checked off all these things. Didn't realize it was the wrong last name. And it was a kid who was new. The kid sits down with their book and is like, look how much I passed off today. And I'm like, oh crap. I just humiliated you. Because now I have to tell you, you can't do that. That was just a total, oh man, I can't believe this kid now believes that they can achieve this, and that would hurt them very bad. So I started taking their picture and putting the picture on the book and their name so that I wouldn't repeat that, and it never did, thank goodness. Because I really did feel bad telling that student, I was like, I'm sorry, I totally messed it off. That kid over there can do that. That's not you. This book doesn't represent you. And I learned a great lesson in how that kid was able to identify the wants in that book. They were all written down, and then he believed that, actually it was a boy in that class. I think it was 2 Brandons in the same class. He believed he could do all these skills that this other kid who'd been there for 8 or 9 months was capable of doing on his 3rd week in. Yeah, as a coach, the last thing you want to do is put your students in a position where, well, that's dangerous for one, because they're going to go out there and say, oh, look, I can do a flyaway. And that's where you go around the bar, let go, do a flip, and let go and land on your feet. Yeah, that's not going to happen on week 3. Nope. Once they got that individualized book, again, it was still in levels. And then another story came up where I had 2 girls that were really great friends with each other, so I thought. One of them was slightly more skilled than the other and got to level 2 sooner. And then the very next week, the pride of the girl who moved to level 2 turns to her friend and says, I'm better than you. I'm a level 2 and you're not. And I felt really bad for the other girl who wasn't as talented and still in the level 1. And I thought, that's not a great way to, I don't want that kind of stigma in my gym. To help eliminate that condescending attitude, I was proud of that girl for achieving those accomplishments, moving up to the next level. But I wasn't pleased with the complete attitude that came out of that. And to boost her self-esteem, she had to stomp someone else's a little bit lower. So a lot of that is actually talked about within the goal process, or I'll talk about it in the podcasts of why I say certain things within the goal process as I do. Back to these books. Originally they were in levels. And then I was like, I don't like this. Really, in gymnastics, there's beginners, and then there's team. It's most gyms would go at that time. It's changed a little bit. Levels 1 through 4, and then once you got to level 4, you would compete, and then you would be on the team from there forward. So I just took all the level 4 skills down and reduced them down to the most basic to the most difficult getting into team. So if you could accomplish everything in that book, then you had the opportunity to move to team. It said that you had the competency, you had the experience, and those skills are in your repertoire of being able to do that, which was included in the level 4 routine at the time. It was really easy. And then the other thing that I noticed is I would have one girl in particular, her name was Hannah, and she was amazing at the floor. She was amazing at the bars. I don't remember how she was on the vault, but on the beam, I couldn't get her on that. I'm like, why are you having issues? I can stand you upside down on the bar. Though you can just stay there on your own all day long and smile. I mean, it looks like a frown because she's upside down. But anyway, she'd be smiling and laughing in a handstand on the bar, and she could swing all the way around. No fear, no troubles, no problems whatsoever. But when she got onto the beam, getting her to sometimes even touch the beam or crawl on the low beam, it was just an emotional overload. And that was one of the things that I took into an account of, why are you so competent here and so terrified here, when in reality what you're doing over there is tremendously more difficult and scary and dangerous, actually. So I realized it was all about the self-esteem. And why did she have more experience? And she had passed off virtually everything in all the skills except for the beam. And she's like, well, I do want to go on to team. I was like, well, the requirement is you've got to pass off everything on all the events to go on to team. And it then forced her to go back and overcome the fears. I had to ask her several times, why are you afraid? She really didn't have an answer, which was, at that time, surprising. I was like, what do you mean? How can you not define why are you afraid? And it just took a couple extra baby steps, but eventually by the time she made it to the end of the curriculum section into team, her best event was beam. Sometimes facing those actually helps us a lot. And that book turned into a lot of people's basically a resume or an accolade, something that they treasure, because at one point in time, all the goals on there were blank. Some of them were easy, some of them they pass off real quick. And then others was a lot of work, and it was week after week after week of trying the same thing and really getting no progress. Since I had basically condensed levels 1 through 4 or 3 into one class, if you're in a curriculum class, then your team. So when kids got better at certain skills, instead of going to the next level and talking down to everybody else still in the other class, I realized that they started helping the other kids. Like, I had that same problem. People naturally love helping other people, especially if it was a challenge to acquire or to, build that skill before they could say, I'm competent. At the beginning of classes, this was, way into the process of, I've got kids that were close to team and kids that were first month of experience. I would usually split them up. I had to make groups because I would only go up to 8 kids in the class. So if I had 8 kids, I had to have 2 on the bar, 2 doing push-ups, 2 doing sit-ups, 2 doing stretches or of some sort. And I'd make little circuits that they'd go around to make sure that we made our time as efficient as possible. I would team the person with the least amount of check marks to the person with the most amount of check marks, at least on that apparatus. And it would change throughout the hour of that class through the day. And because, like I said, some kids will excel so quickly on one apparatus and totally flounder in another. And this way, it kept putting the strength to the weak. The gymnasts that helped the younger, newer ones always became better. Always. They became mentors, even though they may have been one step ahead of that person that they were with. Just the fact that they could say, I know this enough to help you. That made a large difference in their self-esteem. And then when they got into team, I did the same thing. It's like, this kid knows the routine. This kid just scored a 9.5 on that routine. Watch them. And so they had someone to look up to. And then these other ones had someone looking up to them. Now they had an expectation of, I'm a teacher, I'm a mentor, I'm an educator. And they started taking things more seriously. And so that's basically how I structured a lot of my gym. It was so efficient, so easy. One of the things I struggled with especially when I was much younger, working for another gym, and like I said, the binder system. After classes, parents would come to say, hey, my kid is on, what does my kid need in order to move to the next level? Because I'm bringing my kid to show them what it's like to work and progress. So if I as a parent don't know, what can I do at home? So they would always try to occupy the coach between classes. And that coach is like, well, I'm trying to dismiss this one, I'm trying to talk to all the parents, and I'm trying to bring these ones in while I talk to those parents too. So it was always a convoluted mess within the lobbies. Once I started doing this book and having everything identified and written down and personalized, parents could say, hey, kid, give me your book. Okay. Oh, you need to work on this handstand. Okay. Oh, coach wrote notes. You need to point those toes. That's a big one. We never had that mix mesh of issues between classes, and the coaches could have a little bit of a reprieve, which is what they need between classes, because when you're coaching gymnastics 4 to 5 hours a day, that's a lot of energy output, because if those kids aren't doing it right, you're doing it for them, because safety is number one. So those are some of the background stories to where the goal process originated. As we get going through more of these topics, you're going to get to hear some more stories. Like I said, 28 years, lots of stories. I may not remember all the names of them anymore. That's a lot of them. But I certainly do remember the emotions. And, that's what life is all about. But at this point, my goal is to get you out an episode once a week. And we'll talk about several other topics. If you have any questions, feel free to write them down below. And, I've got to give a shout out to Belle. She made me my US Dad's org shirt. I kind of still need to clean up. I need to send it to the wash and clean up all the little residue that's on there. Hopefully in the next episode, that's not there. And, in the meantime, read the goal process, listen to the goal process, or watch the goal process. It's all available to you. The cost is your time. It's like 3.5 hours total if you just watch all the videos online. I've made sure that the barriers to entry of the goal process are eliminated as much as possible. Again, if you have any questions, concerns, complaints, or comments, that's what I would tell my coaches every week in coaches meetings. Please leave them down below, but I never told my coaches to leave them down below. That's new in the YouTube world. So, in the meantime, Izeneyes, believe greatly, achieve greatly.